रघुवर
शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। मनः प्रश्मनोपायो इत्यभिधीयते. The recourse to pacify the mind is called Namaste, Abhinandan, good evening. I, Sugati, on behalf of Department of Heritage, Science and Technology and IKS IIT Hyderabad, very warmly welcome you to the celebrations of 8th International Yoga Day. June 21, which is also known as summer solstice, was chosen as the International Yoga Day because it is the longest day of the year. The theme for this year's Yoga Day is Yoga for Humanity, which was announced by our worthy Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji, in his Mann Ki Baat address. And it focuses on brand India at global scale while showcasing its iconic places. This year, the major attraction of the IDY observation is the Guardian Ring, whereby the yoga celebrations happening across the world is being relayed throughout the Yoga Day. The Guardian Ring underlines one sun, one earth concept and showcases the unifying power of yoga. I request Dean Student Secretary Dr. Rajlakshmi, Dr. M.D. Panduranga Rao, Dr. Ramakrishnan, Dr. Saket Nath, and Dr. Mohan Raghavan, Head HST Department, to kindly come forward for the lamp lighting ceremony as a symbol of an auspicious start.
दीपं ज्योतिः परब्रह्म दीपः सर्वतमोपः दीपेन साध्यते सर्वं सन्ध्यादीपं नमोऽस्तु ते। दीपं ज्योतिः परब्रह्म दीपः सर्वतमोपः दीपेन साध्यते सर्वं सन्ध्यादीपं नमोऽस्तु ते। The contemporary yoga tradition holds on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali to be one of the foundational texts of classical yoga philosophy. We will start the event with Patanjali Yoga Sutra co-chanting with Brahmashri Narendra Kapre Garu. Brahmashri Narendra Kapre Garu has been trained in Rig Veda in the famous Satara school. He also has been trained in Nyaya, Vyakarna, and other Shastras. He holds the chief examiner of various Shastras in various positions all over India. He is president of Samskrita Bharati Telangana Shrauta Samvardhani Sabha and has taught various Bharatiya Shastras to over 5,000 students from all over the world like India, USA, France, UK. Now we welcome the guest Brahmashri Narendra Kapre Garu.
हरि ओम स्वागतं सर्वेषाम्। अस्मिन् दिने विश्वयोगदिवसं लक्ष्यीकृत्य अयं कार्यक्रमः सफलो भवतु। इदानीं वयम् आरम्भं कुर्मः। नमस्काराः। श्री गुरुप्रार्थना। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः
गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः
गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म
गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म
तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः।
तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः।
श्री पतंजलि प्रार्थना।
श्री पतंजलि प्रार्थना श्री पतंजलि प्रार्थना।
योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचाम्
योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां
मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन
मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन
योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां
योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां
पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि।
पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि।
श्रीकृष्ण प्रार्थना।
श्रीकृष्ण प्रार्थना
वसुदेवसुतं देवं
वसुदेवसुतं देवं
वसुदेवसुतं देवं
कंसचाणूरमर्दनम्
कंसचाणूरमर्दनं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं
देवकी परमानन्दम्
देवकी परमानन्दं देवकी परमानन्दं
कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्।
कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्।
अथ योगानुशासनम्।
अथ योगानुशासनम् अथ योगानुशासनम्।
योगः चित्तवृत्तिनिरोधः।
योगः चित्तवृत्तिनिरोधः योगः चित्तवृत्तिनिरोधः
तदा द्रष्टुः स्वरूपे अवस्थानम्
तदा द्रष्टुः स्वरूपे अवस्थानम् तदा द्रष्टुः स्वरूपे अवस्थानम्
अभ्यासवैराग्याभ्याम् तन्निरोधः
अभ्यासवैराग्याभ्यां तन्निरोधः अभ्यासवैराग्याभ्यां तन्निरोधः
तत्र स्थितौ यत्नः अभ्यासः
तत्र स्थितौ यत्नः अभ्यासः तत्र स्थितौ यत्नः अभ्यासः
स तु दीर्घकालनैरन्तर्य
स तु दीर्घकालनैरन्तर्य स तु दीर्घकालनैरन्तर्य
सत्कार आसेवितो दृढभूमिः
सत्कार आसेवितो दृढभूमिः सत्कार आसेवितो दृढभूमिः
ईश्वरप्रणिधानाद्वा
ईश्वरप्रणिधानाद्वा ईश्वरप्रणिधानाद्वा
क्लेशकर्म विपाक आशयैः
क्लेशकर्मविपाक आशयैः क्लेशकर्मविपाक आशयैः
अपरामृष्टः पुरुषविशेष ईश्वरः
अपरामृष्टः पुरुषविशेष ईश्वरः अपरामृष्टः पुरुषविशेष ईश्वरः
तत्र निरतिशयं सार्वज्ञबीजम्
तत्र निरतिशयं सार्वज्ञबीजं तत्र निरतिशयं सार्वज्ञबीजम्
स पूर्वेषामपि गुरुः कालेन अनवच्छेदात्
स पूर्वेषामपि गुरुः कालेन अनवच्छेदात् स पूर्वेषामपि गुरुः कालेन अनवच्छेदात्
तस्य वाचकः प्रणवः
तस्य वाचकः प्रणवः तस्य वाचकः प्रणवः
तज्जपः तदर्थभावनम्
तज्जपः तदर्थभावनम् तज्जपः तदर्थभावनम्
मैत्री करुणामुदिता उपेक्षाणाम्
मैत्री करुणामुदित उपेक्षाणां मैत्री करुणामुदित उपेक्षाणां
सुख दुःख पुण्य अपुण्य विषयाणाम्
सुख दुःख पुण्य अपुण्य विषयाणां सुख दुःख पुण्य अपुण्य विषयाणां
भावनातः चित्तप्रसादनम्
भावनातः चित्तप्रसादनम् भावनातः चित्तप्रसादनम्
तपः स्वाध्याय ईश्वरप्रणिधानानि क्रियायोगः
तपः स्वाध्याय ईश्वरप्रणिधानानि क्रियायोगः तपः स्वाध्याय ईश्वरप्रणिधानानि क्रियायोगः
समाधिभावनार्थः क्लेशतनूकरणार्थश्च
समाधिभावनार्थः क्लेशतनूकरणार्थश्च समाधिभावनार्थः क्लेशतनूकरणार्थश्च
अविद्या अस्मिता रागद्वेष अभिनिवेशाः क्लेशाः
अविद्या अस्मिता रागद्वेष अभिनिवेशाः क्लेशाः अविद्या अस्मिता रागद्वेष अभिनिवेशाः क्लेशाः
सुखानुशयी रागः
सुखानुशयी रागः सुखानुशयी रागः
दुःखानुशयी द्वेषः
दुःखानुशयी द्वेषः दुःखानुशयी द्वेषः
यम नियम आसन प्राणायाम
यम नियम आसन प्राणायाम यम नियम आसन प्राणायाम
प्रत्याहार धारणा ध्यान समाधयः अष्टावङ्गानि
प्रत्याहार धारणा ध्यान समाधयः अष्टावङ्गानि प्रत्याहार धारणा ध्यान समाधयः अष्टावङ्गानि
अहिंसा सत्य अस्तेय ब्रह्मचर्य अपरिग्रहाः यमाः
अहिंसा सत्य अस्तेय ब्रह्मचर्य अपरिग्रहाः यमाः अहिंसा सत्य अस्तेय ब्रह्मचर्य अपरिग्रहाय यमाः
जाति देश काल समय अनवच्छिन्नाः
जाति देश काल समय अनवच्छिन्नाः जाति देश काल समय अनवच्छिन्नाः
सार्वभौमा महाव्रतम्
सार्वभौमा महाव्रतम् सार्वभौमा महाव्रतम्
शौच संतोष तपः स्वाध्याय ईश्वर प्रणिधानानि नियमाः
शौच संतोष तपः स्वाध्याय ईश्वर प्रणिधानानि नियमाः शौच संतोष तपः स्वाध्याय ईश्वर प्रणिधानानि नियमाः
अहिंसा प्रतिष्ठायां तत्सन्निधौ वैरत्यागः
अहिंसा प्रतिष्ठायां तत्सन्निधौ वैरत्यागः अहिंसा प्रतिष्ठायां तत्सन्निधौ वैरत्यागः
सत्यप्रतिष्ठायां क्रियाफलाश्रयत्वम्
सत्यप्रतिष्ठायां क्रियाफलाश्रयत्वम् सत्यप्रतिष्ठायां क्रियाफलाश्रयत्वम्
अस्तेयप्रतिष्ठायां सर्वरत्नोपस्थानम्
अस्तेयप्रतिष्ठायां सर्वरत्नोपस्थानम् अस्तेयप्रतिष्ठायां सर्वरत्नोपस्थानम्
ब्रह्मचर्यप्रतिष्ठायां वीर्यलाभः
ब्रह्मचर्यप्रतिष्ठायां वीर्यलाभः ब्रह्मचर्यप्रतिष्ठायां वीर्यलाभः
अपरिग्रहस्थैर्ये जन्म कथन्ता सम्बोधः
अपरिग्रहस्थैर्ये जन्म कथन्ता सम्बोधः अपरिग्रहस्थैर्ये जन्म कथन्ता सम्बोधः
शौचात् स्वाङ्गजुगुप्सा परैः असंसर्गः
शौचात् स्वाङ्गजुगुप्सा परैः असंसर्गः शौचात् स्वाङ्गजुगुप्सा परैः असंसर्गः
सत्त्वशुद्धि सौमनस्य एकाग्र्य
सत्त्वशुद्धि सौमनस्य एकाग्र्य सत्त्वशुद्धि सौमनस्य एकाग्र्य
इन्द्रियजय आत्मदर्शन योग्यत्वानि च
इन्द्रियजय आत्मदर्शन योग्यत्वानि च इन्द्रियजय आत्मदर्शन योग्यत्वानि च
सन्तोषात् अनुत्तमः सुखलाभः
सन्तोषात् अनुत्तमसुखलाभः सन्तोषात् अनुत्तमसुखलाभः
कायेन्द्रियसिद्धिः अशुद्धिक्षयात् तपसः
कायेन्द्रियसिद्धिः अशुद्धिक्षयात् तपसः कायेन्द्रियसिद्धिः अशुद्धिक्षयात् तपसः
स्वाध्यायात् इष्टदेवता संप्रयोगः
स्वाध्यायात् इष्टदेवता संप्रयोगः स्वाध्यायात् इष्टदेवता संप्रयोगः
समाधिसिद्धिः ईश्वर प्रणिधानात्
समाधिसिद्धिः ईश्वर प्रणिधानात्
समाधिसिद्धिः ईश्वरप्रणिधानात्
यत्र योगेश्वरः कृष्णः
यत्र योगेश्वरः कृष्णः यत्र योगेश्वरः कृष्णः
यत्र पार्थो धनुर्धरः
यत्र पार्थो धनुर्धरः यत्र पार्थो धनुर्धरः
तत्र श्रीर्विजयो भूतिः
तत्र श्रीर्विजयो भूतिः तत्र श्रीर्विजयो भूतिः
ध्रुवा नीतिर्मतिर्मम
ध्रुवा नीतिर्मतिर्मम ध्रुवा नीतिर्मतिर्मम
धन्यवादाः। अस्मिन् विश्वविद्यालये प्रथमे वर्षे योगस्य अष्टाङ्गेषु यमस्य नियमस्य च अभ्यासः भवतु इति निवेद्य अहं विरमामि। स्वस्ति।
A magical experience indeed. Thank you, Brahma Shri Mahamahopadhyay Narendra Kapnikar. Moving on with such vibrant energy, I would now request our Dean Students Welfare, Dr. Raj Lakshmi, to kindly say a few words on this occasion.
Good evening, all. A warm welcome to all of you. Welcome to the chief guest, Padma Bhushan, Vice Chancellor, Nalanda University, Dr. J. Bhatkar, and then Professor V. Madhavan, IIM Bangalore, who are going to grace this occasion. And like on behalf of director, I would like to actually welcome the complete audience here. On this gracious, occasion of International Yoga Day, we take the pride of also inaugurating the Department of Heritage, Science and Technology at IIT Hyderabad. Few words about Department of Heritage, Science and Technology, the vision and mission with which the department is launched at IIT Hyderabad. On behalf of director, I would like to share few thoughts. Department of Heritage, Science and Technology is dedicated to the application of science and technology for conservation and development of tangible and intangible heritage assets with a specific focus on the Indian context. Heritage includes monuments, archaeological sites, intangible ones like knowledge systems, cuisines, medicine, dress, arts, language, symbols, stories, and much more. Our activities at IIT Hyderabad will be centered around use of science and technology for development of heritage assets, associated industries, technologies, scientists, entrepreneurs, and professionals. Our goal, vision includes research to define the state of the art in heritage activities using science and technology. Most important, training of human resources engaged in heritage areas. And the very important next contribution from IIT Hyderabad from this department would be the product development to help heritage industries, mainly focusing on entrepreneurships, scale up and serve customer better so that, at different levels, business models can also be worked out from the heritage perspective. With these few words, I congratulate and also, congratulate the head of the department, Dr. Mohan, and his team for this wonderful effort come together, and make the department bigger, an innovative department, not only nationally but also internationally, is what our wishes are. Thank you very much. And
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the encouraging words. It is my utmost pleasure to introduce to you all our Honorable Chief Guest, Padma Bhushan and Chancellor, Nalanda University, Dr. Vijay Bhatkar. Dr. Vijay Bhatkar is an Indian computer scientist, IT leader, and educationalist. He's a Padma Bhushan, Padma Shri, Maharashtra Bhushan awardee. He is best known as the architect of India's national initiative in supercomputing, where he led the development of Param supercomputers. He developed the first Indian supercomputer, the Param 8000, in 1991, and later the Param 10,000 in 1998. Dr. Bhatkar has played significant role in forming several national institutions and research centers, including Center for Development of Advanced Computing, CDEC, and the Electronics Research and Development Center, ER&DC, in Thiruvananthapuram. He is currently working on developing an exascale supercomputing for India. Thank you, sir, for giving us your precious time. Today, the International Yoga Day also marks a small celebration of inaugurating the new and small steps we have taken towards spreading knowledge. Our honorable chief guest will be inaugurating the Department of Heritage, Science and Technology. I request Dr. Vijay Bhatkar to kindly inaugurate the HST department and address the pleasant gathering.
Sir, we would now like to request our Chief Guest, Dr. Vijay Bhatkar, to address us with a few words on this great occasion. Please, sir.
Oh, you. Video near I can. Sharing the screen.
Hello.
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Am I visible there?
Yes, you're visible and audible, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I think today, International Yoga Day, what an auspicious day we have chosen for this very important perspective of bringing heritage, science, and technology to the students of science and technology, the highest institutes that we have created, the IITs, and particularly IIT Hyderabad. When this project on creating a project titled Takshashila came to Science and Heritage Research Initiative, acronym that's RE. When we read the proposal, the way it was conceived, we were wondering that this we are taking a small but giant step in a way, this one, in India's academic perspective, particularly in the realm of science and technology. And we instantly got connected and we thought that it is this kind of projects which we would like to have to give a new direction to our science and technology heritage that has been nurtured since Vedic times till today, this one. But we are not aware, even at the highest institutes, what has been India's contribution to our heritage, the science and technology perspective. and it must be brought in the realm of our studies and explorations in science and technology. So when we got this project from IIT Hyderabad, this one, and there were presentations. There was a presentation on the project by Professor Mohan Raghavan, and we were very, I would say, stimulated that now at IITs we are beginning a new realm of really connecting of the most contemporary technologies which are emerging. This one, which we are teaching, which we are researching, which we are exploring in our IITs and other higher education institutions, along with our grand heritage, I think, which we have inherited from our saints and seers. And we recited just now Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. So I'm really grateful to Brahmashi Narendra Kapre for reciting this Yoga Sutra, which reminds us the grand heritage of India's contribution to knowledge itself. So I think we are grateful for such a beautiful beginning to this department, which we are now trying to, I think we are contemplating to start in IIT Hyderabad. So there are so much can be said about India's heritage, the entire heritage starting from the Vedas, which is the highest knowledge that been given to the entire world. This one, our 4 yogas, our Vedangas, our Upavedas, our 6 darshanas, and of course our Ityasa, the grand Ityasa of this we are talking about, Ramayana and Mahabharata, this one, and that heritage which we are carrying. And we need to study that. We need to study this grand heritage. So much knowledge, so much deep knowledge, so much enlightenment knowledge has been given to us, and this needs to be understood by us. Yoga Sutras represent, I think what today is the International Yoga Day. This is the contribution of India to the yoga knowledge of yoga. This one by Maharishi Patanjali, and this was recited here to remind us the grand heritage that we carry. Now, when this department is being created, I think it's been nucleated and created in IIT Hyderabad. This one, it's a new beginning in the history of IITs. I feel this one, because this will pave way for other higher educational institutions like IITs and ISOs and many other central universities to introduce, take similar step in the universities. And then this is in a way what our Honorable Prime Minister was looking forward to, that we must teach, we must explore, we must research on not only the most contemporary knowledge that is emerging, but also revisit our grand heritage in these institutes, and then we can again re-explore the contribution that has been made, knowledge contribution that has been made. All over the world, I think you see this kind of movement which is happening now, to explore that, to create a new vision, not only for India but for the world itself. What kind of world we are inherited, what kind of world we are going to hand over to our next generations, kind of thing. So I'm very happy that I think when the Shri project started, Science Heritage Research Institute started, large number of projects started coming, and we thought that initially these projects will come from traditional institutes, but these projects started coming from our IITs and from ISOs and from our central universities, and also some lot of private initiatives started coming, and then we looked at it very empathetically, and in the sense that we are very happy that and in that came from the project from IIT Hyderabad, I think led by Professor Mohan Raghavan, and who made a presentation of it. We were very impressed that can we create one of the first university that was ever created, which is Takshashila. Can we recreate Takshashila in a contemporary form, in a contemporary perspective? I think in today's now when we are talking about, we are celebrating India's the great Yoga Day, this one, and we are looking forward to such project. We want to reinterpret, for example, we like to reinterpret, understand from the Vedic perspective contribution which are coming to us in what I would have called as quantum technologies. And recently there have been many attempts all over the world. There have been many discussions on this quantum technologies as was interpreted as was looked in the Vedas, in our perspectives of Vedas. So this is a very, very good step, and particularly this coming from institute like IIT Hyderabad, which has been at the forefront in the at such initiatives. So I congratulate IIT Hyderabad, Professor Mohan Raghavan, and guided by, of course, great guru, Sri Narendra Kapre, Brahmashri Narendra Kapre, that they will be good, because the importance of guru is very important in our heritage, in our culture. So under the direction of great gurus, can we interpret the emerging sciences, the emerging technologies, and create the world, I think, for the future. And that is the main issue, how we are talking about sustainability. What is sustainability? What is the path of dharma? What does it mean today? And how it's to be interpreted? And what is the world we wish to create for the future generation? So I'm very happy, Professor Mohan Raghavan and his team has come forward and offered this proposal to us, and it will give I think surely it will bring new dimension to the SRI, not only to SRI project, but India's science and technology itself. There are several projects that we have come to us. We have funded about 40 to 50 projects now, which are under consideration, different considerations and in different ways. And I'm sure this will give a new dimension to our science and technology, to our institutes, our emerging institutes, of which we are very proud of, and particularly IIT Hyderabad. I think the director for really taking up this project within the IIT Hyderabad, and in many ways, I think we wish to carry this model forward. Our Takshashila, our Nalandas, and our great universities that were created, it shows that we can recreate that kind of thing, India, which was there during the Vedic times, and once again look forward to what our Honorable Prime Minister calls the great thing, the rise of India again, the new India again, and make once again India reclaim India as Vishwaguru. So thank you very much. I'm very pleased. I see several distinguished professors, Professor Amba Kuttane, but I don't know all the other names of all the professors, but who will be participating enthusiastically and show a new model for development of new India. Thank you very much for inviting me for this grand occasion. Thank you very much.
Now we'll be moving on to a talk on yoga and meditation, reflections on great Indian tradition by Professor B. Madhavan. Professor B. Madhavan is a professor at Operations Management at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, where he's been teaching since 1992. He was the founding Vice Chancellor of Chinmaya Vishwavidyapitha, a university for Sanskrit and Indic knowledge. In this assignment, he was responsible for creating new generation of academic programs in the higher education space that seamlessly blends ancient Indian knowledge traditions with the contemporary knowledge systems. He was also the Dean Administration of IIM Bangalore and a member of Governing Board of IIM Bangalore for 4 years. Professor Mahadevan is also in the board of IIM Kashipur, IIT Madras, and Kendra Vidyalaya Sangathan.
He is also in the International Advisory Board of California Management Review. On behalf of everyone present here, I extend a hearty welcome to you, sir, and I request you to take.
Okay. I hope I'm audible to everyone.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, if I can be given a right to share also, it will be useful as I have a PPT to share with you while I'm talking.
Yes, sir, you have.
I have the rights. Okay.
Yes.
So, 1 minute, I will. Just give me a minute. I hope my
Yes, sir.
PPT is also visible. Is that okay? Okay. First of all, it's my pleasure to be part of this great occasion on the International Yoga Day that IIT Hyderabad has taken a very important step in terms of investing on Indian heritage. It's my personal privilege and pleasure to be part of all of you. We have some very great personalities here. Dr. Bhatkar is here. I see Dr. Amba Kulkarni. It's my pleasure to be in the august company of such people who have made a huge contribution to this country. What I propose to do today, maybe over the next 45 minutes or so, if it is fine, to share with you some of the thoughts on yoga and meditation. We had the nice recitation of the sutras from chapter 2 of Patanjali Yoga Sutra by Brahmasri Narendra Kapareji, and the students also followed. Yoga has several dimensions, and therefore, in a very limited time, I just want to take one leaf out of it and talk about how, as a professor of management, how I have been able to bring yoga to the management students. That dimension of yoga, which I think is very important to all of us. So that's what I would like to share a little bit with you as we go along. Well, one of the biggest issues that we seem to be facing all over the world is in terms of job stress and burnout. There are plenty of studies which seem to suggest, for instance, that there are a growing number of dissatisfied employees. They are complaining of deprived meaning at their workplace. When people work as a means of livelihood, if they are not able to see meaning to what they are doing, that introduces a much bigger challenge. And this seems to be increasingly an issue which people are facing. Also, workers worldwide face a lot of extended work hours, work overload, so leading to what is typically called as job burnout and mental stress. It looks like a number of people have thought that this is something which we have to live with, which we have to accept as a way of life, and therefore, I think that's a way to go. But at the same time, there are a lot of research in the last 10 years, particularly, where there is a view, particularly I've seen many of these studies in the Western universities, in the American universities and so on, where the American managers want a deep sense of meaning and fulfillment on the job. Even more than the money and the time off they get and the money that make. So there is a feeling of life beyond simple materialism. So therefore, this kind of feelings are increasingly being felt. And there is also a demand for spiritual values. People say that can the workplace provide opportunity for spiritual growth, not just personal growth and financial growth and so on. Is it possible to have spiritual growth? So all these undercurrents are in a way trying to tell us that there is a certain kind of an issue that we all seem to be going through, in the name of the modern workplace, in the name of what we do in our professional life and so on. There are so many, uh, surveys available. I just pulled one of them just to give you a sense. What you see here is what are the top causes for stress in the US. And surprisingly, what you see here, except for item 5, which seems to be a little physical, poor nutrition is all about things like physical. Most of the other things that you see in this list is all about mental. It's all about mind. It's all about something happening in the mind. Therefore, there is this slow understanding that what we need to do in our life is not just physical. It's not just about money. It's not about having a certain job and having a certain promotion and all that. All those are very important in our life. But there seems to be something more important that we need to focus on. This feeling is increasingly there in many places, and recent researchers are repeatedly pointing to it. So what is really happening, if you really ask, is there is a lot of stress people go through in many of their workplaces, and they don't know how to cope up with this stress. And when they are not able to cope up with the stress, that results in what is called exhaustion or irritation that leads to a certain level of ineffectiveness, which is a vicious circle that puts more pressure on individual. Again, individuals feel a little more stressed and so on. So all these lead to a stage of discounting oneself and others, and leads to a lot of problems of health and so on. So what I am trying to present before you is, while we have a lot of material progress, there is a lot of technology, there are a lot of new things that we are talking about. What is really also happening is, at an individual level, we seem to be going through a churn. In fact, there is this, Schopenhauer, a German philosopher. In 1812, he wrote a book in German, which was in 1849 or 52, translated into English, called The World as Will and Representation. And in that book, he makes a statement. Suddenly that comes to my mind. Now that the people have solved all the problems, they become problem themselves. Is a kind of a statement that he makes in that particular book. So the point is, I think at some point in time, it's extremely important for us to understand that every individual matters. There is a Vyaktitva in every one of us, and we should be able to understand it. We should be able to nourish it. We should be able to bring the best out of it. And a great deal of the Yoga Shastra indeed talks about this particular issue. So that's where this whole context of yoga is coming in a big way today. And thanks to the efforts of our Honorable Prime Minister, we want to bring this idea of yoga into our mental mind space first. Then we understand it more on a personal level. All these have become very important. I thought I will only give you a preamble to why we need to think very seriously about yoga. So it's all about mind game at the end of the day. And what we are at the end of the day today is not just the degree that we take, the technology that we have at our disposal, the opportunities that we have in front of us, but it's also about our ability to handle ourselves, our ability to understand what is called the mind game, about which our ancestors have very significantly talked about, and the crowning glory of that is in Yoga Shastra actually. So I think it's important for us to understand the mind game. Let me quickly take you through a sort of a set of ideas. You just see this. I'm just throwing a set of ideas. You just see what is happening. There is a ring of the bell on the wall clock. That reminds me of the temple that I visited today morning. I am reminded of a tall person who mentioned about his daughter who is in Chicago. My memory goes to the visit that I made to Chicago 14 years ago. I stayed in my brother's friend's house. His daughter's name is Lakshmi. I am now reminded of the next street neighbor of the same name. She served us masala dosa when we visited their house last week. Hotel Saravanabound makes good masala dosa. Masala dosas contain onions. Onions are not sattvic food and is taboo. My mother-in-law does not eat onions. Onion prices went up. Delhi government lost their elections long back. Price rise is the problem that we face today. My servant maid keeps demanding more salary. I can go on. You may be thinking there is a lot of unrelated material here. They're perfectly related. Please understand what you see here is a small sample of the transcript of a wandering mind of a normal person. Please understand this is a normal person. A normal person may have some 1,000 thoughts per minute, and an agitated person may have 10,000 thoughts per minute. So if you write a transcript of what he is going through, I think we'll cut all the trees in about a few hours time and then put it into a print format. Point I'm trying to make is this is an average mind. This is called mind chatter. And the mind always finds adjacency. Every statement here is related. Don't think they are unrelated. They are all related. There is something common which keeps on shifting from one to the other and so on and so forth. So therefore, I think when you say, understanding the mind game, the question is, what do we do about this? Do we become helpless and allow the mind to do what it is doing? Or do we have to take charge of what is happening here? So this is the central issue in yoga. This is a central issue that we need to actually understand and how our ancestors have thought about it. So let me use Bhagavad Gita as the vehicle today to take us through this particular journey and see what is it informing us and what are we supposed to do with all these endless mind chatter that we all seem to be having. I just want to show this very beautiful picture which many of us have seen. The ISKCON people have brought a nice imagery of Parthasarathi that you see here. But this picture is a very profound message. This picture actually provides a very profound message. And I want you to relate to that. This message is available in Bhagavad Gita, of course. It's also available in Kathopanishad. So let me just talk about what is this picture all about. Now, this is a very interesting picture. You have horses, you have a chariot, you have a charioteer. The Lord Krishna is the charioteer. And of course, Arjuna is the Adhikari who is sitting in the chariot and so on. This is related to our life journey. This picture actually is an epitome. It is a representation of what every one of us are going through in every day of our life. If you look at this chariot has absolutely no motive power. Chariot cannot move. It needs a horse or it needs a horsepower. You need to attach a motor of 1 or 2 horsepowers and maybe you have to drive the chariot. Otherwise, the chariot will not run. Chariot has no motive power. The motive power is in the horses. The horses actually run. And as the horses run, the chariot actually is taken into a journey. But you can't leave the horses by themselves. So you need all these horses are having the reins. So there is a rein which is a power of control, seat of control for the horses. And the rein must be in the hands of a charioteer. In this case, it is Lord Krishna. And everything has a relationship to our life. So this journey that you see here is equivalent of a life journey. Life is a journey towards fulfillment. We are all actually doing that. We think there is a way by which we get, our life is fulfilled. The chariot, equivalent of chariot is the body. Body has absolutely no motive power. The body is inert. The motive power is with our sensory organs. As I talk to you, I can go to the Twin Towers, I can go to Bombay, or I can go to Mint Square in New York or whatever. So it is the sensory organs which takes this body through the mind. So the horses are equivalent to the sensory systems. And the reins to control the horses, the equivalent of that in our life is our mind. Our mind controls our senses. Mind is called a super indriya. If you read our yoga text and our philosophical text, what we find is the mind is a super indriya. That's why while we are sleeping, we can put all the sensory organs to sleep. But in a dreaming state, the mind can run, mind can give a talk, mind can talk to someone, mind can catch a train. Anything can be possible. Karmendriyas and jnanendriyas are available in the mind only. So mind is a super indriya actually. That controls the indriyas. Then you have the charioteer, which is the equivalent of the buddhi. That's why in Kathopanishad, Yama told to Nachiketa, Buddhim tu sarathim vidhi. Please understand the charioteer must hold the reins. If the charioteer don't hold the reins, if you let it loose, we don't know what will happen to the journey. The horses may run helter-skelter and we may not reach the destination. So this Parthasarathi image that we see here profoundly informs to us that there is a life journey, and a life journey involves indriyas, the body, the buddhi, and so on. And there is a method by which all these are to be put into a certain order of master-slave relationship. Otherwise, this life journey will not happen. So this is the central theme in yoga. And the entire Yoga Sutra is a set of ideas for us to really get this right in our life journey. So that's what this imagery is actually talking about for us. So essentially, if you look at Bhagavad Gita, this has been discussed in great detail. There is a great amount of thinking has gone into it. I just want to take a few shlokas. The entire chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita is all about yoga. It gives such a beautiful cookbook approach of step 1, step 2, step 3 as to what we should do, so that we set on to the journey of mind control through what is called yoga or meditation. So look at this shloka: Uddaret Atmana Atmanam Na Atmanam Avasadayet Atmaiva hi Atmano Bantuhu Atmaiva Ripuratmana. There is a very important message Sri Krishna gives in this shloka. He says, lift yourself through your vehicle called mind. Don't let the mind spoil you, destroy you. The mind can be your friend or the mind can be your foe. So all that we achieve, my dear friends, in life is a function of what we do about the mind. Are we able to befriend the mind so that it is all aligned to what we are doing and we reach the life's journey that we are interested in? Or we are at loggerheads with the mind, so it can be the friend or the foe. And then, of course, there is a set of ideas that Sri Krishna gives in chapter 6. And Arjuna comes with a couple of very interesting questions. And one of the questions says that, Chanchalam hi mano Krishna pramadi balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. Krishna, all the nice things that you are talking about mind is all fine. But let me tell you, it's very difficult to control the mind. I don't think it's as easy as what you have said, for which Sri Krishna replied, Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam. I agree with you, Arjuna. It is very difficult to control the mind. I am not, disputing with you on that. But then he said there are two tools that we need to use. He says, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. There are two basic tools to conquer the mind. One is called Abhyasa and another is called Vairagya. You find all these in Yoga Sutras in any case. So it is a question of what kind of effort that we put, what kind of a sustained effort that we put on a ongoing basis, and what kind of a little bit of dispassion that we are able to develop on certain things in our life. All these are extremely important for us to win over the mind. And so that's what Sri Krishna talks about. And during the course of the discussion in the chapter, he also brings a very nice concept, and which is in Buddhist terms, they call it as the middle path. It is not the extremes. Just to give you an example, if you have a stringed instrument like a veena, you cannot tighten the string. So if it is the veena strings are so tight, the moment you start playing, it will get cut. If you make the strings too loose, you don't get a beautiful swara out of it. So that is the idea. In life, we need to be a little moderated in what we do. That's what Krishna says. Yukta ahara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapna avabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. He says, if you know how to practice yoga, which is a sense of moderation, not too much of eating, not starving too much, not sleeping too much, not waking up too much, and moderating a lot of our life activities and so on, will prepare us for a very nice methodology of yoga. And he says such a yoga will actually help us do away with a lot of challenges that we face in life, and then walk through the path with a great sense of accomplishment and success and so on. So that's what he says. Yukta yogo bhavati dukkha is yukta ahara vihara is a very important concept that he talks about. So let me tell you, more than talking what is yoga, let me tell you what is not yoga, because sometimes people get a little bit confused with a few things. So let me clarify that. First thing is yoga is and meditation is not just about a physical exercise. Even in Patanjali's scheme, you have ashtangas. One of them is the asana. But so beautiful today we saw the definitions of yama and niyama when we recited some of those sutras and so on. So a lot of people think yoga is all about physical exercise. That may be a good way to start, but certainly yoga and meditation is not about physical exercises. There are antaranga prayogas, there are bahiranga prayogas, and so on. Yoga is not about mats and dresses and tiger and deer skin spreads and so on. So some people, seem to, take a little more distraction on these kinds of matters. I think we can leave it at a certain level. There is a much deeper concept and ideas that have been told to us. It's not something which you can, inject through surgical intervention or any such thing. It's all about personal effort. It is the abhyasa that Sri Krishna talked about. The other most important thing I want to share, yoga is not a compartment different from another compartment of daily life. Some people think morning 6 to 7 you have to do yoga, and 7 to the next day morning you can be ayogic, not yogic. You can be ayogic. I think that doesn't work. Yoga is that 1 hour may be just a taste of what we need to do. Yoga is actually a way of life. So therefore, I also want to, somehow clarify this. It's not that we have to do yoga for an hour and then, get back to our normalcy and do what we want to do in life. In fact, there are a lot of people who say, let me do some, food control and so on. So for about 5-6 days, they are on a certain kind of a fasting. There is a certain kind of controlled eating, and they more than compensate it on the last day of the week, more than what they could not do in the last 6 days. So we can't do yoga like that. Yoga is not meant to be a regimen of that kind. Therefore, I also want to share, yoga is not a compartment. Yoga is something which should slowly pervade into our life, and it should let us experience the charm of a few things that yoga is being talked about. So it is an intense preparation of a mental exercise, which eventually leads to samadhi. So I quite often say, let's not worry too much about samadhi. A person who wants to climb Everest, it doesn't bother about the Everest. He talks about the first base camp. He understands the nuances of reaching the first base camp. Once he reaches the first base camp, he talks about how do you reach the second base camp and so on. I think we should take an approach of that kind. We don't have to worry too much about samadhi, but there is a nice set of regimen which we need to sort of get into, which will eventually lead us to samadhi. Let us not worry too much about that. So rather than talking about what yoga is, sometimes it helps to clarify what not yoga is. So I thought I would share that. Then I will get on to a few very interesting simple steps Sri Krishna talks about in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. There lies the charm of Gita. It really puts people on to the track of yoga with very simple steps. In fact, many of my students keep asking me, I tell them, you do this, let's discuss about it after 6 to 9 months. Many of them have never come back after 9 months. Even if they see me, they say, so now we know what to do. I think this has put us onto that regimen of what we need to do and so on. That's the charm of the prescriptions that we see in Bhagavad Gita. So let me quickly take you through a few simple things which Sri Krishna actually talks about. So in Gita in chapter 6, we find some very nice ideas that Krishna talks about. I think for anybody who is in a path of yoga, these are very, very valuable things. He talks about value of solitude. Ekaki yata chittatma is what he talks about. I mean, it's very important for us to start practicing a little bit of being alone. Being alone is a phenomenal investment. It can be half an hour, we can find that half an hour every day where we can be alone. Maybe, sit in a very secluded place. It can be even in a bedroom or in a hall where we find it little comfortable and so on. Some thoughts on seating. Stiram asanam atmanah. He says, think about the way you sit. It's very important. Very simple baby steps Sri Krishna gives in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. Then he says, Tatra ekagram manakritva. Prepare yourself. Try to find a little bit of being alone. Sit in a very comfortable place and try to focus your mind slowly. Tatra ekagram manakritva. Then he even gives very specific ideas. How do we do it? Look at this beautiful shloka. Samam kaya shiro grivam. Dharayan achalam stira. Samprekshya nasikagram swam. Dishascha anavalokayan. Such a minutest details Sri Krishna gives. He says Kaya, Shiro and Griva. Kaya is the body, Shiras is the head, Griva is the head, neck. So can you align all the three of them? Samam, Kaya, Shiro, Grivam. Can you put them on a erect single axis? Dharayan, Achalam Stiraha, don't keep shaking. Can you sit comfortably so that your neck, your body and the head are aligned? Then Samprekshya, Nasikagram. Focus your attention on the tip of the Nasika, tip of the nose. And then Sri Krishna also says Swam, because otherwise we'll end up looking at somebody else's nose. So he says your own nose. He says Swam. He says Nasikagram Swam. Dishascha anavaloken. Don't look here and there. These are real baby steps, let me tell you. These steps go, this is like going towards the first base camp of Mount Everest. I think these are very valuable steps. These simple steps have taken people to a very long journey in terms of how they bring themselves to their own gathering and so on. So these are some of very quick ideas I wanted to actually share with you in terms of how Sri Krishna talks about some nice things in Gita, where some basic steps and all those are really happening. Now I want to share with you also a set of experiments which we did. One of my student who happened to be the revenue secretary of this country also, and he did a very interesting work on yoga which we did some 15 years back. I wanted to share with you how much of an impact that it created. So I thought I will share a little bit of that thought with you also there. We actually did a detailed study on a set of managers. He took a set of managers, taught them yoga way of life, handheld them for 6 months, and tried to understand what changes they went through in their life. And we systematically captured all of them. So let me share some of those ideas also with you, just to tell you that here is a tool that our ancestors have given us, which makes us a much better personality so that we achieve what we need to achieve for ourselves and for the society. I thought I will just share the results of an experiment that we did. So we actually taught them the yoga way of life. It is not just only the asanas and the pranayama, but we taught them all these ashtangas over a very extended period. A detailed set of instructions were given to them, and they went through both practice and theory. So let me explain how we went about this whole process and what happened at the end of all these things that we did. So this was done in a company called Grasim Industries Limited. It's a flagship company of Aditya Birla Group, and which had its own. It's a fairly large company, and one of their unit called Birla Cellulose. This is where we did this control experiment. Actually, we wanted to understand how people undergo change and what really happens to them when they go through a regimen of yoga in a sustained way and so on and so forth. So there were 84 managers who voluntarily agreed to participate in this whole exercise, which we did over a period of 6 months in a certain way we went about. So they were divided into two batches of 42 each. One group of 42, which we called as a control group, and there is other group of 42, which we call it as a yoga group. So we made two groups of 42 managers. So what we did was, with the yoga group, we taught them both the theory and the practice. Extensive theory was given in terms of what is the larger idea of yoga, what are the ashtangas, what is even yoga sutras were taught to them and so on. A lot of lectures on how yoga makes a difference to people. Also, we taught them some breathing control, meditation, asanas. Also, it is both practice and theory. Over an extended period of time, we did that. With the other group, what we did was we gave them some physical exercises. We told them the importance of keeping physically fit. We gave them some exercises, importance of success in living. So those kinds of ideas were given to them, and they were also given some physical exercises and so on. So these were the two groups, and we wanted to understand what is happening to these two groups. Over a period of 2-3 months, we measured, before the beginning of the whole exercise, we measured some certain parameters of them. We also measured after the study was over. We tried to understand what was happening to them. And these are people with a fair amount of experience. Why this is important is they have gone through the stress of life, both at family life. There is this working life. There are tension and pressure, all that I talked about at the beginning of this talk. There are people who have adequately experienced them. So therefore, that's the kind of group with which we actually did this study. So this is what we did. 30 hours of yoga practice, asanas, pranayama and kriyas and so on, 75 minutes every day. So like this, over 3 weeks, extended over 6 weeks, we did it over 3-4 weeks of, and 25 hours of theory lectures on the philosophy of yoga and so on. That is for the yoga group. For the physical exercises group, we trained an equal number of hours for normal physical workout, spot jogging, bending, body rotation, hand and leg movements, etc., etc. We also gave them lectures on success factors in life based on modern thought, not on yoga. You have an alternative view. In the Western paradigm, we have a lot of ideas. So we gave those kinds of ideas to them. Then we used a specific instrument called Mashlow's burnout inventory. It's a proven scientific instrument which we can use to measure the stress level of individuals. Therefore, we use that as the inventory that we have to use for measuring. So what we did was, before we started the whole exercise, both for the yoga group and the control group, we measured MBA at the beginning of the exercise. Then they were put into this regimen and they went through it. After this whole exercise was over, they were continuing to do it. We measured it later. After I think 2 months or so, we again measured what is the MBA. And then we did some statistical analysis. I just want to, show you what has happened. So this is how we went about. 1,120 employees, 30 managers, actually 42, 12 of them I think probably dropped. 30 was the useful results, I think. 30 on the control group and 30 on the experimental group of yoga. We took some pre-study measurement for both the groups and post-study measurement also. And then we actually analyzed it statistically. So let me quickly show you what we got out of this study. So what you see here is the difference between that burnout inventory pre minus post. So when pre minus post is negative or positive, it can be positive or negative. So if it is positive, that means the value was much higher before and the value is lesser later. So in the yoga group, what has happened is it has become positive. The average was 0.8931, that MBA value. So what it says is the stress level actually came down. Therefore, the post was much lesser than the pre. Therefore, pre minus post turned out to be positive. Whereas surprisingly, in the other group, the physical exercises group, it turned out to be negative, which means after these 2 months of regimen, they went through all the physical exercises and so on. The stress only increased. It did not come down. So both of them are anyway statistically significant. Anyway, I'm skipping those details of statistics anyway. All that I'm saying is the yoga group, the stress level significantly came down. And in the physical exercises group, the stress level significantly went up. This is the first thing that, that we found. It's what you find in these two metrics that you see. We also actually measured what happened to the group, the differences between the group at the beginning and at the front, at the back, after the the exercises was done. So what is really happening is while we started the exercise, the significance value is very poor, which means the two groups were not statistically significant at all. They looked very similar. It is very hard to say that yoga group, one group was better than the other because the T-tail, the significant test was not significant. That's 6% is not significant in statistical terms. Whereas after the study was done, what you find is it's hugely significant. 0.000 means it's literally significant. It's absolutely sure that the group which went through yoga has been very significantly different from the group which actually did not go through yoga, whereas that difference was simply not there when we started the exercise. So all these actually told us certain things about yoga. It said yoga group showed a significant reduction in job burnout. Physical exercise group, on the other hand, only the burnout went up. And as I was telling you, it was the differences between the two groups were not at all significant before we started the study, but it became statistically very significant at the end of the experiment. So essentially, this exercise showed that yoga is going to make a very significant difference to people. And then we went on to actually recommend how they should introduce yoga even for the working managers, how they should actually have a regimen by which people are taught some principles of yoga and they are given opportunity to even practice it even as part of their work life and so on. So all these recommendations anyway, were done as part of this particular study. I thought I will just show. So I would actually leave it at that level. The last part of the story, which I also want to tell you, is that there is a lot of study which has been done. Neuroscientists have been doing studies. I have been reading a few papers in Stanford and other places and so on, where they try to understand how does it from a neurological sense, what really happens when people do meditation and yoga. So just to give you a little bit of a primer on that, as we all know, the human brain has all these, partitions. We are all very much aware of it. I'm not really getting into the details of it. You have the temporal lobe, you have the, which controls the hearing and learning and so on. You have the parietal lobe. All these cerebellum and all that we are aware. But what really happens is the two hemispheres. We are often told that you have this right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And modern science tells us that right hemisphere is more about artistic things, aesthetics, and so on. The left hemisphere is more logical, analytical, and so on. But what these studies also is telling is these two hemispheres are connected with a thick nerve tract called corpus callosum, which is like a, sort of a bridge between the two hemispheres, the right and the left hemispheres. What is ideally to happen is the signals from the right hemisphere is to be passed to the left hemisphere through the corpus callosum. It is like a bridge and vice versa. But what in reality happens is corpus callosum is not a very faithful postman at times. So some signals from the right hemisphere don't come to the left hemisphere and so on. So there are studies which neuroscientists are doing. They are able to show that when somebody is in an extended stage of meditation and so on, the corpus callosum becomes much thicker. And they also have identified that this passing of signals from the right hemisphere to left hemisphere is much more efficacious. The efficacy of that is much better with people who do meditation. So the right and left brain coordination, all that improves. Such kind of studies also happen. I thought I wanted to briefly even provide this kind of a dimension. So all that I want to conclude by saying that here is a great science of yoga, which our ancestors have developed thousands of years back. And what appears as a simple, set of ideas and breathing control and asanas and so on, indeed, it's a profound tool given in our hands, which helps us improve our neural functions, which helps us manage our own mind, which helps us stay focused in many things that we do in life, which helps us to also, in a spiritual sense, have our life journey take us to the destination that we all aspire to be. I think what more we can really ask for? What more we should really ask for? Therefore, I think it is very important that we take these yoga sciences quite seriously. I think it may be very useful to start with simple asanas and breathing control and so on. But I think the real value of yoga lies in understanding the yoga as a way of life. Yoga as a mechanism which must influence our day-to-day life. I thought I wanted to share these thoughts And I want to end this talk with this quote from Manusmriti. It is also available in Amrita Bindu Upanishad. In many places you find here. It says, Manayeva Manushyanam Karanam Bandhamokshayoho Bandhaya Vishayamsam Muktye Nirvishayam Smritam. I think that's what our ancestors at the end of everything tell us. Get hold of our own mind. And if we can befriend our mind, I think we should be on the top of the world. We should be able to do what we want to achieve, and in the process, not only make ourselves successful. I think, as our honorable Prime Minister keeps saying, we would be able to help India become a Vishwa Guru and rediscover its strengths once again. I think I will stop here with these few words. I just want to only say that yoga is not an issue for time pass. It is certainly a serious tool for our well-being of the society and the nation also. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I would be very happy to, hear any views or any comments if time permits. We can move on. Thank you for this opportunity.
It was a very enlightening talk in every kind of sense, all the way from Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, Ashtadhyaya, etc. It was very enlightening. Maybe if it is okay, we can take some questions from, there are a lot of students here as well as PhD students as well as faculty. Maybe we can take some questions on this. That would be nice. Anyone? Okay, I'll ask one basic question. Oh yeah, how do you, how teach to incorporate this between in research, like for example, like Hyderabad is a research institution and PhD students, there are a lot of stress in the modern education. And faculty also have a amount of stress, lot of various topics as well as things, including the lateness.
So thank you. I think I already showed two dimensions here. Essentially, I think there are a couple of dimensions on which one can seriously take up a research. Of course, first is the neurological dimension. I think there's a lot of consciousness studies which are all being done. Therefore, I think one must take yoga as the basic mechanism or the lens through which we are able to mount our studies on consciousness, on mental activity, the neurological functions and brain retention. So many things are there. Therefore, certainly there is one dimension on which I think an institution like IIT should definitely, sort of take a direction. I think the other thing is also, as I showed, yoga as a tool for a very healthy living is itself is a vast subject, and one can come with very specific regimens of measurement. One can have mechanisms to measure stress. One can have mechanisms to measure many of these mental functions that individuals go through. That can be a second dimension on which certainly one can conduct a series of research. Of course, the third dimension is for the humanities and the management faculty to also take up the role of yoga in issues like stress management and of that kind. I think so. One can open many dimensions like these in which one can take up a series of research. Some of them can be in the domain of science, some of them can be in the domain of meta science, some of them can be in dimensions which are between the two and so on.
Thank you, Madhavadi. Anyone want to ask any questions? Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Learning yoga, like if we watch YouTube videos and learn, or we need to get training from a guru.
Connection seems fine. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Sir,
sorry. I thought I couldn't hear any questions. Sorry. Yeah, please.
sir, how can we start learning yoga? Like, can we learn from YouTube videos or we need to get trained from a guru?
No, I think it is very important that if possible, we should learn only from a guru, because it is not about a set of practices or a set of sutras which are to be memorized or anything of that kind. I think it is in the best of our traditions. It is very important that we learn from a guru, because what we learn from a guru is not just the knowledge of what is contained in Yoga Sutra, or even in practice of yoga and so on. I think it is much larger than that. Therefore, my request is we should have a very good yoga master with us, who will not only teach us the physical aspects of the yoga, but also teach us Yoga Sutra, and also be able to communicate to us the notion of yoga way of life. I think that's very important. Yoga is at the end of the day a way of life, and that happens only when we have a guru who is able to, by his words and deeds, communicate it much stronger. Yes, I see. Yes.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
I was attending a spirituality series some days ago, and they also gave the chariot analogy you gave earlier. They talked about meditation and chanting in the early in the morning, specifically Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So my question was, does yoga include chanting, and chanting in particular Hare Krishna Mahamantra?
Okay, so let me give a larger view of this issue. There are different versions by which they actually seem to impart the yoga. You gave an example. Now, if you go to a Buddhist meditation, they actually do it mindful meditation and so on. But I think we need to understand at the fundamental level, what we need to understand is many of these alternative methods have something in common. And what is that? And that is the mind. See, yoga and meditation, the starter of this is to bring down the distraction of the mind. That's why I showed you a sample transcript of a few thoughts. That's why in the Yoga Sutra starts Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. The chitta vritti has to be tapered down. That is the basic requirement for one to travel on a journey of yoga. So now, in order to do that, there are different methodologies which are being proposed. For example, some people say put a om and then focus on it. Some people say focus on your tip of the nose. Some people say put your Ishta Devata and then focus on it. Or some people even say put a music and focus on it. The idea in all these type of meditation is to somehow bring down the vibrations of the mind. So these are all starting point for yoga. The real yoga benefits of yoga comes when the mind is a little more settled, and when the mind is settled, then one focuses on larger aspects of yoga way of life. Therefore these differences do exist, but we need to understand the basic idea behind all these. That's very important.
Questions?
Wait, this mic.
I have one more question. How much sleep would you consider ideal and
Okay.
ideal schedule for a student?
So, different people may have different answers. If you go to a doctor, he may give an answer. But if you look at the yoga text, particularly if you look at what Bhagavad Gita is saying, he's saying Yukta Hare Viharasya Yukta Swapna Avabodhasya. That's what he uses. So essentially, all that we tell in the yogic text also you find that in fact in many of the Indian texts you'll find it. There will not be a specific number 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours or anything of that kind, but there will be a principle. You will find that you have to rally behind the principle. And what is the principle here? The principle says don't sleep too much, don't wake up too much. Now what is too much is something which is a function of the individual, his physiology, his age and so on. So therefore I think a guidance of a competent guru and a doctor can help us. But I think when we are young, I think 7 hours to 7.5 hours is a good, when I say young, up to the age of 40, 45, 7 hours is a good amount of sleep, I think. Beyond that, it is oversleeping. But as we grow older, 6 hours, 6.5 hours may be good enough. But there is no such mention of a certain amount of hours. It only says don't overdo it. So I think we need to understand it in our own ways. Many of our prescriptions are like that.
Thank you, sir. It was indeed a very intuitive session. The Department of HST, Heritage, Science and Technology, was set up to leverage the power of science and technology to understand and deploy heritage assets in a gainful manner. Today, we show Tech for Yoga as a microcosm of the opportunities and avenues that lie ahead in the frontier areas of heritage, science, and technology. We now present before you a digital yoga studio, an encapsulation of a few tech demos that have been built to help bring together yoga practitioners and yoga gurus and help them collaborate and scale. On behalf of the entire Yoga Tech team, I can assure you that this is just the beginning, a small step toward many milestones that are yet to be achieved. Since the start of the event, or rather since the start of the International Yoga Day, we have talked so much about yoga and primarily about what yoga is. I hope you were attentive because now we are going to have a yoga quiz. So, handing over the stage to the quiz masters for the day, Kunj and Vaibhavi.
Rather informal, so I request all of you to come forward. The last few rows, could you just come forward and begin? And we'll, since there are few people, you can just call out answers that you. Yes. Okay.
No.
We published.
There are some turning people on.
Okay. So I request you happy to join. The questions are pretty easy anyway. Okay, so
We'll get to know if you are not after.
join. Okay, so initially we thought we could raise hands if whoever knows the answer. But since we have fewer people, probably we can just call out answers. There's going to be an interval. It's just to raise awareness. So the first round is just about guessing the name of the asana. So we'll be showing you an image of the asana, and you need to identify it. Okay, so this is the first asana. Shirshasana. Very good. So that's the headstand pose. The benefits are like it's very good for the neck and the spine, and it reduces common headaches. This is a very what is the name? Shavasana. It's everyone's favorite, and everybody waits for it till the so Shavasana, the corpse pose. So this brings in a deep meditative state of mind and reduces BP, anxiety, and insomnia-induced problems. But mostly it ends in sleep for most of us, I think. But anyway, okay. So this is the third asana. From the structure, you can guess what it could be. If in, it's not Trikonasana. Yeah, Navasana is the right answer. It looks like a boat, doesn't it? So it's based on that. Okay. Okay.
Where is it?
Desk, please. Left.
So you also unmute yourself and call up the answer. Okay, so this is the next asana. Does anyone know the name of it? Dharma. Good audience. Okay. So the bow pose. It has benefits like it's good for the back and abdominal muscles and helps flexibility of chest, neck, and shoulders. What is this not called? Oh my God. This is called Gomukhasana, the cow face pose. It provides relief for sciatica pains and relaxed shoulders and knees. Okay, so the next asana. Does anyone want it? Can you tell it louder? Yeah. Do you practice? Okay. So this is Halasana, the floor pose. From the structure, you can easily relate to what it could be, I guess. Okay, what is this? Pose. This is a very common one, model. This one in increased communication. This is the next up. Could you guess the Chakrasana? Strength legs, arms, the chest. Okay, I think the neighbor is very easy and everybody. Okay, so sleep pose strengthens the entire back and neck and improves blood circulation. So this is the last one. Yes. Slowly. Yes. This Ushasana, the camel pose. It's good for the lower back and stretch muscle. So the next one would be to guess.
Okay, so the photo will be displayed and you will get the name of the movie. So let's try. Anyone? Anyone? Yeah. Okay. There's a hint written on the side. Here written, this is the photo. Anyone? Yeah, that's correct. Someone is the father of the yoga. He's written various books on yoga. Very famous yoga teacher. This one. Maybe you would have seen this photo in history textbook, maybe. And that's correct. Here before. He was initially a freedom fighter and then turned into a yogi. Anyone? That's correct. Anand is spent more than 30 years of his life in US spreading the yoga, and his influence on the American yoga movement has been due to his known as father of the yoga in the not because a younger story. Anyone? Anyone? The answer is Swami Shivananda. Anyone? Yes, the answer is Swami Satyananda. Is a disciple of Swami Shivananda, the one who we saw in the last question. Anyone? Looks like this was a tough round. Anyone?
Adina question paper setter.
Avinav Vidyarthi.
That's correct. Here at Unveil Vidyarthi. He was the head of Sringeri Vidyapith, which was set up by Adi Shankaracharya long way. Okay, so
You can want.
Yes.
Sir is all full.
The posture we showed in the first round, do you know who that was? The answer was in the second round. BK Sayangar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
Okay, now who wants to try out one of the asanas we showed?
How about
Okay.
That's good.
So, okay, what is the input of this?
Give options.
It's not an answer. What word? Oh, did she?
Someone online.
Oh, someone online is asking, could you please repeat?
Oh,
It's huge. Oh, yeah, that's correct. So it's huge, and huge means union. Who authored the Yoga Sutras? This is something that everyone would know. Patanjali Maharshi, yeah. So he has not only authored the Yoga Sutras, he's also known for his work in Sanskrit grammar, such as Mahabhashyam. It's a commentary on Panini's work. Okay, who is called the father of modern yoga? Okay, so it's Sri Tirumalai Krishnamacharya ji. He held degrees in all 6 darshanas of Hindu philosophy. And he's the architect of Vinyasa, which means the sense of combining breathing with movement. And he also contributed in revival of Hatha Yoga. Okay, now name the person who popularized yoga asanas to the Western world. This was there in the previous round shortly. Yes, VK Sayangar. And he's the student of the previous person who spoke of Tirumala Krishnamacharya ji. So VK Sayangar ji authored several books on yoga, light on yoga, light on pranayama, etc. He is a Padma Shri awardee in 1991, Padma Bhushan awardee in 2002, and Padma Bhushan in 2002 and Padma Vibhushan in 2014. Okay, the next question is how many chapters or adhyayas are present in Yoga Sutras of Patanjali? Yeah, oh my god, people have written. Okay, so, okay, do you want to name them? Samadhi sadhana. Okay, according to Patanjali, how many limbs, elements, or angas of yoga are there? This is like a, I shouldn't have had. Okay, so could you name them? We chanted that in the Yoga Sutra previously. Yeah. Name any one of the 8. Yeah. Dhyana and Pranayama. Okay, 4 are done. Asana, yes. Samadhi, she said. There's one more. Dharana, yes. So, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi.
What are the limbs of yoga, which is about external and internal control? Out of the 8 limbs which were mentioned in the last question. Anyone?
I think people are playing.
Oh, yeah. You can show the chat maybe. We'll do that.
Forward.
One minute, escape. Yeah. You can show the chat, maybe that will be easier. Where is the WebEx? Oh, here, yeah. Oh, I can't see the chat.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, huge. Oh, our Pragya. Pragya. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so Santan, Antarang, and Bahirang are not correct. Anyone else? That's the answer.
Not here. Two.
Yeah. Yaman is
Yeah, and we are correct answers.
1 minute, please. Okay, this is good. Yeah.
So yum are the external controls. There are 5 yum managements in Yoga Sutras. There are again 5 niyams as well. Yums are like the don'ts, and yum are the one need to follow. Let's move on to the next question. What is the limb of yoga? Rasan. What is the limb of yoga which mentions about breath control? Yeah, easy one. Another easy question. How many asanas does Surya Namaskara typically have? It's correct. 12 asanas. This is going to be a difficult one. Name a 15th century yoga text that describes various kinds of pranayam and their benefits in a compact and systematic manner. Anyone? Yeah, that's correct. Last question of the day. Which text describes the yoga practice taught by Maharishi Vasishtha? Yeah, as the answer. You need to join 2 words. Yeah. Yes. So that concludes the quiz. Thanks for your participation.
Thank you, Masters. Yoga is a perfect opportunity to be curious about who you are. And as for Srimad Bhagavad Gita, yoga is the journey of the self to the self through the self. With this, I would like to mark the closing of the celebrations of the 8th International Yoga Day. I take this opportunity to thank our Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Bhatkar, Professor Mahadevan, Brahmashri Narendra Kapregaru, Director ITH, Dean Student Welfare ITH, students, staff, and faculty. Undoubtedly, last but not the least, to the august audience for making the event a success. Thank you. Good evening. We request everyone for